about the contents in both the male and the female. We're going to talk about hernias. So first off, the inguinal canal, if you want to get an idea of where it is, so there's the leg. You have the inguinal ligament passing right there. That's going to be an important landmark for finding the inguinal canal. So we're going to talk about the deep inguinal ring and the superficial inguinal ring. They are not extremely obvious externally, but it's like happens roughly like right there, and then it comes through somewhere over there. So we're talking about the canal that travels through. So deeply, the boundary of this inguinal canal is this deep inguinal ring. Superficially, it's the superficial inguinal ring. Anteriorly, the boundary is the aponeurosis of the external oblique muscle. It's going to be in here. Inferiorly is going to be the inguinal ligament. So that's going to form the inferior boundary. This is just a rough estimate, so you have kind of understand it's traveling from deep in the abdomen externally. It's going to be carrying the sporadic cord, so it's going to end up traveling into and become the testicle down here in the scrotum. So superiorly, it's the arching fibers of the internal oblique and the transversus abdominis muscle. So right here, it's going to form the superior boundary. And then posteriorly, so back here, it's bound by the transversalis fascia and reinforced by the conjoint tendon. And that's going to be really important over here. So, I'm going to go ahead and pull up another screen, and we're going to talk about the contents of that canal. So here's our deep inguinal ring, here's the superficial inguinal ring, and so we've got this canal traveling through here. So in the male, it's going to be a spermatic cord. And in the female, it's going to be the round ligament. This is especially important for males because the spermatic cord contains so many important structures. It's also going to be carrying some nerves and arteries. It's going to have the ilioinguinal nerve, the genital branch of the genital femoral nerve. It's going to be carrying the testicular artery and the pampiniform plexus, which is a series of veins that go down into the testicles and play an important role in cooling arterial blood as it reaches the testicles. So, let me once again sort of redo this. But this whole thing is full, so you're going to have basically a cord that's going through this canal that's just full of all of these structures, and it is covered by fascia and some other things. So now we're going to talk about the spermatic cord as it goes through the inguinal canal. So the spermatic cord has multiple layers, and going to start, these layers form by kind of pulling through layers that already exist in the um, abdominal wall. So the first thing it's going to travel through is the peritoneum. So we're going to just put that right here. Let's redo that. Right there. So that's the peritoneum. The next one we're going to run up against is the transversalis fascia. And as this runs through, it is going to continue as the internal spermatic fascia. So it kind of pulls that along. So the next layer we have to go through is the transverse abdominis muscle. And then, of course, we're going to keep going through our muscle layers. So we're going to go through next the internal oblique, but the muscle and the fascia of the cremaster muscle comes through, and that is important. It's called the cremasteric reflex. And what that does, because of the genitofemoral nerve, there is a genital and a femoral branch. But superiorly, they are one and the same. So the genital branch is traveling through here with the spermatic cord. You can stroke along the anterior or medial thigh, and you'll be hitting the femoral branch of that nerve. And that actually stimulates this thing called the cremasteric response that contracts and pulls the testicle up, and just a little bit of clinical significance relative to the nerve. So that is the internal oblique. And then we finally get to our most superficial layer, the external oblique muscle, and that forms our external spermatic fascia. Then these eventually go down, and they form the layers of the testicle. But all of those layers are formed as they come through the layers forming that inguinal canal. So our next step is going to be, let's go ahead and get rid of that. Our next step is going to be to talk about the hernias that are possible. So let's draw our little leg here. Right here. So we're going to look at this deeply. So we have the deep ring, and then it's going to travel through here to the superficial ring. And we're looking at it as if we're inside the body. So there's two possible hernias. One is an indirect hernia, and that's when there is some herniation. Some of these abdominal contents actually go through that deep inguinal ring. This is normally a congenital issue, something that is going to be present from birth, and it may manifest itself, for instance, as a third testicle, is how some kids might think that's going on. The other possible hernia is called a direct hernia, and that is when something breaks through this conjoint tendon and then enters the inguinal canal through that. This can happen when a lot of pressure in the abdomen is produced. So large fits of coughing, stress from weightlifting, etc., etc. Anything that's going to cause a lot of pressure through here can cause uh, problems here at this conjoint tendon and go through. So that's our little overview of the Inguinal Canal, and we'll have further videos later about, for instance, the testicle, the nerves and arteries, and why they're important in this area. But that canal is important for hernias, which is a major clinical element of the area.